This week, the center of the political world is a ruby red congressional district in Tennessee, the type of place where Democrats would ordinarily never have a chance. But both President Trump and the GOP congressman who recently resigned coasted to victory in Tennessee's 7th district, which encompasses parts of Nashville and wide swaths of rural areas. But suddenly, with less than 48 hours to go, both parties have poured millions in the final stretch, with Republicans scrambling to avert an electoral disaster. Joining me now is the Democrat who hopes to flip this seat and narrow the GOP's razor-thin House majority, Tennessee State Representative Afton Bain. Representative Bain, thank you so much for being with me this morning. Really appreciate your time. As you know,
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. As you know, this is a district that is solidly red. Both Trump and GOP Congressman Mark Green won it by about 22 points. But your record is pretty progressive. So is that really in line with the more conservative voters in your district?
Well, the reason this race is competitive is because the Washington Republican agenda of delivering an economy that works for everyone has not delivered. And I think it's hilarious that Republicans and their billionaire friends are trying to spend millions to save a seat that they should win without thinking. But if we flip this seat, it will send a national message that the Republican Party needs to get serious about lowering healthcare costs.
But before we dive into some of those aspects in your race, I do want to get your views on your party, because there's been a debate since last year about the way forward in the party and the like, and voters still have a very low opinion of Democrats per many public polls. Even one recent poll showed that just 29% of Americans have a favorable view of Democrats. So what about your view about your party and your party's leaders, specifically about your party's leaders? Do you have confidence in your party's leaders?
Well, I've been running this race as a Democrat that cares about affordability, and I think that's what's going to win it for us. I think that there is a new generation of leadership in the party, and especially from the South, where we want to see Democratic leaders that step up, especially in moments like this that require a fearless, bold leadership. And that's what I'm offering the district, and I think it's resonating with voters.
If you had a chance to, would you vote for Hakeem Jeffries as Speaker?
We represent very different districts, and I've got 48 hours to flip a congressional district and really send a message to Washington, like I said, that they need to get serious about healthcare costs. Honestly, I haven't thought about it, but I want to say that I have been really grateful as someone who has organized in the South her entire life. I've been very grateful for the national support in this race. Tennessee is often a state that is overlooked and disinvested in, and to see national surrogates and national supporters providing monetary support and jumping in, it really means a lot to all of us. We welcome it all.
Yeah, speaking of that, because we are seeing both sides send in these big name surrogates in these final hours before Tuesday and tomorrow. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is holding a tele rally for you. Are you in line with her ideologically?
Like I said, I think that there is a strain of the Democratic Party that cares about holding corporations accountable and lowering costs for working families. And my politics are in alignment of that. As a state legislator, I've worked to eliminate Tennessee's regressive grocery tax. As an organizer, I work to make healthcare more affordable in the state of Tennessee. And so I think those are the Democratic leaders and candidates that I really resonate with, are those that are trying to lower costs for working families.
Yeah, because Trump has been calling you, quote, the AOC of Tennessee. So, aren't you just feeding into that narrative by appearing with her?
Like I said, we're really grateful for the support across the political spectrum. And and for your listeners, the Teletown Hall also features former Vice President Al Gore, who is a Tennessee legend. So I look at it as iconic that you have Democrats from all political stripes joining in on this moment and saying, we are standing up to what is happening in Washington, and we want to be part of the solution rather than the problem.
Yeah, because some of those you are campaigning with, including AOC, have called for ICE to be abolished. You have been sharply critical of the ICE raids in Nashville, but do you think that ICE should be abolished?
Like I said, I've got 48 hours to flip this congressional district and have been dogged about the message of affordability. And that's not what I'm hearing in the district. What I'm hearing is people, especially rural voters, are driving 4 hours to a hospital without care. We've got veterans that are going without, care because the VA hasn't been fully funded. And so these aren't the issues that I'm hearing about in the district. What I am hearing about is that grocery costs are high, utility bills are high, rent is high, and there's no kind of end in sight. And so my message has been one to lower costs, and I think it's resonating across the district, which is why this race is so close.
But you have been critical of the past on these ICE raids. Do you think all these ICE raids in Nashville should stop?
I mean, it's been hard. I'm in my district, I represent a Hispanic community, and I'm also a social worker. And so prior to that ICE incident, I was out knocking doors in my district, talking to Hispanic constituents who said that we are concerned about the overreach of our federal government. And so, as a lawmaker, I represent 60,000 voters. As a congresswoman, I'll represent 400, 700,000 voters. And so I take into consideration the real issues that these voters and my constituents are living with. One of which is they don't want their federal government overreaching in their communities.
Some of your past tweets have gotten attention, including in 2020 when you posted deleted a post that said, quote, "Good morning, especially to the 54% of Americans that believe burning down a police station is justified." Another, you appear to supportive of a demand to, quote, "defund the police." Do you regret posting those comments?
Yeah, I said that during the George Floyd moment when the entire country was demanding accountability and safer policing. And what I've always believed is that communities need investment. They need investment to be safe. They need investment in mental health responders, first responders, and youth programs to reduce that crime. And I was a private citizen back then, and now I'm a lawmaker. Like I said, I represent 60,000 voters with diverse political opinions. But what I hear from families across the 7th District is that they want safe neighborhoods and they want to lower the cost of living, and that's where my priorities are.
So should you not have posted those?
Like I said, I'm a lawmaker now, and so I wouldn't post things like that now, and haven't, because I've definitely matured, and I think that speaks to the moment as well that I've spent 10 years organizing in a state to ensure that communities are able to access investment for community response and safety. And I'll do the same as the next congresswoman for the 7th congressional district.
I do want to ask you about an attack line from Republicans, because this is a comment you made in 2020 about Nashville. It's gotten a lot of attention in your race. Let's listen to this.
I hate the city. I hate the bachelorettes. I hate the pedal taverns. I hate country music. I hate all of the things that make Nashville apparently an it city to the rest of the country, but I hate it.
I know you said those comments were taken out of context, but I want to ask you about it because I'm wondering, do you think it was a mistake to say that?
Once again, I was a private citizen. Nashville is my home. Do I roll my eyes at the bachelorette parties and the pedal taverns that are blocking my access to my house? Yeah, every Nashvilleian does. But this race has always been about something bigger. It's about families across Middle Tennessee that are getting crushed by rising prices, while Washington politicians and billionaires argue about this type of nonsense. And so once again, I've been steadfast and dogged in my message about addressing the affordability crisis in Tennessee. And like I said, the race is close because that is what I've been doing.
So this fall, after 43 days, the longest government shutdown in American history, just 6 Democrats voted with Republicans in the House to reopen the government. Virtually all Democrats, including your party leaders, voted no because there was no new health care policy included in it. So if you were in the House at the time, would you have voted with your party leaders to keep the government closed or with Republicans to open it?
I want to highlight an anecdote from the district that I think encapsulates how voters felt. I was at a healthcare town hall in Clarksville, and a Black female veteran who works at the Social Security office burst into tears. This was during, I think the government shutdown had just ended, perhaps. And she, in her tears, said, why do I have to trade my pain for someone else's? Alluding to the fact that, the Democrats, were holding out to ensure the ACA subsidy. So I want to flag that I think there's a lot more nuance in politics that we're not giving credit for. And I'm someone who always listens to my constituents. And more importantly, most people don't want to think about government. And the fact that they've had their government front and center for the past 9 months or 12 months speaks to the fact that they just want a government that works effectively for the people and to deliver lowering costs for them. And so I just, there's a lot of nuance, and I'm someone who always listens to my constituents, and I would have taken that into consideration in that vote.
So if you had, but it's a yes or no vote, so how would you have voted?
At this point, I'm not a congresswoman. And like I said, I would have wanted to hold a bunch of town halls across the district to see what folks thought, because I heard from a lot of, especially employees that work in federal government, that they've gone 2.5 pay periods without pay. However, I've heard from constituents who also want to ensure that the ACA subsidies remain. So, it was a tough decision, and I would have voted with my district.
Okay. All right, Tennessee State Representative Afton Bain, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.